H2KInfosys provides world-class online IT training, staffing and software testing solutions to customers worldwide. H2KInfosys supports 100% job-oriented training, hands-on project work, cloud test lab, resume preparation and review, mock interviews, robust syllabus. One-time pay, lifetime access to live classes and videos. H2KInfosys has won the trust of thousands of students worldwide. For free demo class, visit h2kinfosys.com.
Okay, here I need to give the login name. For example, let me give the login name as so when you are working for a company, you will have the login names as per, so every user will have a login name. So when you are selecting Windows authentication, you need to give the login name, Windows login name. Okay, but when since I'm going to, you got it. So Windows authentication, you have to give the login name of your Windows system. So for example, if you see here, start control panel, you will see that in administrative tools and in the computer management. So in the computer management, I mean, these details are not required as a tester, but just quickly I'll just show you. Here you will see local users and groups. So here if you see users, so these are the users for my computer. So I have a guest user, I have Meg6 and I have Megnat and I have Reddy. So I have, these are the users which I have. So when I lock my computer or when I log off my computer, so I'll see these 4 users. So anyone can log into my computer. Like this, inside an organization you will have lot of employee IDs. So in that case, when you are selecting Windows authentication here, when you are selecting Windows authentication, you need to give the user ID of that employee. Okay, and when you are giving SQL Server authentication, you don't you can give any login name. For example, I'm giving the login name as Meg MEG18. Okay, so I just entered MEG18 as username, and here I'm selecting SQL Server authentication. So here let me give the password as pwd@12345. Okay, so let me copy this. Let me give pw in capital letter and let me copy this. So now I'm giving this password for this user Meg18. So I'm giving this password. Now let me, once I add these details, I need to go to server roles. I'm giving some public role. We have different roles actually. So server admin or a DB creator, bulk admin, like that. We have different roles. So I mean, we don't need to focus more on this. And then you need to go to user mappings and you need to select which database you want him to have access. So I want him to have access for DBT 24th May batch. Okay, now that's all. So I can actually give status grant and enable. I'll just repeat again. I'm canceling this. So what I did was, I went to the security folder and then right click on the logins, click on new login, and then I'm giving the name. I have selected SQL Server authentication and then I'm giving the name as Meg18, and then I'm giving the password as pwd@12345, and then I went to this server roles. I selected public here, went to user mappings, I selected a database which I need to give him access, and then I need to click on OK. Okay, so that's it. Now when that user, I'll tell the user ID and password. So what he will do is he will open SQL Server. He will try to open SQL Server 2008 R2, and then I'll tell him the password. So whatever I have given. So what he will do is he will select SQL Server authentication and he will give the user ID as Meg18, and he will enter the password. Now he'll click on connect. So for the first time when he is trying to connect, it will ask him to change the password. So what he needs to do, okay, let's change the password. Let's give the new password as pw@12346. So copy this and paste it here. Now click on connect. So this is how, now if you see here, the current user who has connected here is Meg18. Okay, so he can expand this databases, and since I gave access only for DB24 May batch, and he cannot expand other databases. So when he tries to expand any other database, he will get an error saying the database DB testing is not accessible. He can only expand this database which we have, 24th May batch. Okay, and that too he cannot see the tables. See, now he is not able to see any tables. So for example, let me go to this user, and if you see here inside this database 24th May, I'm seeing the tables as I'm seeing employee, job applicant, sports. But this user whom I created is not any tables. Okay, the reason why he is not able to see any tables is when I right click on, again go to the security, go to security, logins, and right click on this May 18 properties. When you see here server roles, I gave public. I have not given even anything. For example, if you take for this database DBT 24th May, for this user I have given only public access. I have not given data reader, data writer, data reader or DDL admin. So if I have given data reader, he should have seen all the tables. If I have given data writer, he can actually update, or he can do some updates or something, write operations. Since I have not selected any of these, he cannot access until I give permission for this permissions for that user. Okay, so now let's try to give permission for Meg 18. So here, this window I logged in as admin, who is Meghnath. So now let's try to give select access for him. So now this is how you need to give a select access. Grant select on, what is the table we have in database? In this database we have a table called employee. So now let's try to go to that database. You need to select here the database which you want to work on. So let me select DBT 24th May batch, and then you need to give grant select on what is the table, employee, to what is the user, Meg 18. So this is the syntax if you want to grant access, select access for employee on table employee to Meghnath, Meg 18, which you just created the user. So grant select on employee table to this user. So execute this. So I executed this. Now let me go to the Meg 18 login. Okay, so now I came to this login, other login, where Meg 18 has been logged in. So now let me refresh this and see, now I'm able to see employee table. The moment sysadmin gives me access for employee table, I'm able to see, but still I'm not able to see other tables. Okay, and then again, if I decided like, okay, I don't want to give access for him, I can actually do revoke. So the moment I do revoke select on employee to employee ID Meg 18, so when I execute this, he cannot again he cannot see this. So when he refresh this, he cannot see that table employee as well. Okay, so just quickly summarize. So I just created now how to create a user, how to create a new user, and how to create SQL Server authentication, give some password, and select the database which you want to give him access in future. Now when that user tries to log in with his user ID password, since I gave public, I have not given data reader or data writer option, he cannot have option to select data, or he cannot have any option to see the tables. If you want to give access for individual tables for that user, you need to write a query like grant select on employee to Meg 18. Once you give like that, so he can actually log into the database and he can see the tables which belongs to that database. So any questions here? So Windows authentication, it will not ask for password because you already logged into the system. That means you are authenticated user. SQL Server authentication is something like where it will ask for user ID and password. Okay. So any questions so far, or is it like nothing is clear, or some part is clear, or 100% clear? What is it? How many of you? For how many of you it's clear? Okay, so just to summarize, Windows authentication will not ask for password. So now so I'll just show you. So when you try to connect to SQL Server, so let me open SQL Server. So here, when you try to connect to SQL server, so when you are selecting Windows authentication, so it is not asking for password, because I have already logged into the system. I'm now seeing SQL server window. That means my system, if it is having user ID password, I have entered that password correctly. That means I am already authenticated. Okay, I am already authenticated, so I don't need to enter user ID password here. But if you want to authenticate again, if you want to do authentication again, then you can give SQL server authentication. Or one more place where very widely SQL server authentication is used is assume that I want to give access for my database for a person who is not employee of our organization. Only employees of my organization will have Windows ID. Okay, so for example, okay, others will not have this Windows ID. In that case, I have to select SQL server authentication, and I need to create him user ID and password so that he can access outside the organization. Is it making sense? So Windows authentication is you can give only for the employees of your Windows users, all Windows users of your organization. Okay, so now let me give you one more example. So now if you see in my computer, so I have, these are the users. So I have Meg6, Megnad, Reddy, and so these are the users I have for my computer. So when I log the computer, you will see like this. Or when I log off and when I try to log in the Windows system, you will see 3 icons. Which user you want to log in? So you will see like this, and here you will see here guest user, and here you will see like Meg6, and here you will see like Megnad. So this is the current user. So all of you seen any time like this, when you log off, when you try to log into Windows, if you have different accounts for that system, if you have different accounts for the system in Windows, while logging in, it will show the users, all the users. So you have to select which user you want to log in. How many of you seen this type when you log off and when you try to log in? Yeah, so all of you would have seen this. So now when I have a password for this Megnad account, so when I click on this Megnad, it will ask for the password. So that means when I'm entering password and entering to the computer, that means I know the password. I'm already authenticated. So I don't want to enter the password again when I open SQL server. Okay, so that is the reason why Windows authentication doesn't require password. So now let me show you one more thing. So I'm connecting with the soup. So now I'm going to connect with another user. So for example, I'm trying to give another login for, see now, go to security and logins, right click on this, new login. Now when I select Windows authentication, I can give login names of those who are here. Only I can give login names for those users who are in my computer management. Only these users. Meg6 I can give. See now, let me try to give Windows authentication here, and I'm giving Meg6. Okay, and then the moment when I click on search, here if I enter here Meg6, check names, you can see that Megnad PC/Meg6 is there, because for this computer Meg6 is a user. So in this when you are trying to log into this computer, you will see like this Meg6, guest, and Megnad. But now when I try to give for Windows authentication, when I try to give some other user, say for example Meg20, now when I click on search, when I write here Meg20, he is not there. This user is not there in my Windows system. So if you search here, he will not find, and user is not found. Okay, so Windows authentication you can give only for those whose accounts are there in the Windows system. You cannot give for anyone Windows authentication. Okay, so now is it clear now, Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication? For how many of you is it clear? Okay, so I'm not seeing the response from all of you. anyone wants me to tell about Windows authentication, I'll unmute you, so you can take a couple of minutes to explain what is Windows authentication. Who can tell? Just ping me, I can tell like that. Anyone? Anyone wants to just tell about Windows authentication? Okay, so no one is comfortable to tell about Windows authentication. Okay, so let me make it still clear. Okay, so let me make it still clear about Windows authentication. So when you want to give the first point, you can give Windows authentication for those users who are there configured in your Windows machine. If you are an individual, okay. So for individuals, you can give Windows authentication. See here, when I try to add, for example, when I try to add a user, so right click on this login, new login, and when I click on search, for example, when I click on Meg here and click on search, here when I'm searching, for example, when I'm searching for Meg 6, okay, so it is actually searching for Megnath PC / Meg 6. If you are working for an organization, for example, if you are working for Infosys or some company, it'll search in the domain. It'll in the domain like Infosys / MEG. So it will search in throughout the organization, complete organization Active Directory Windows account, and if that user is found, it'll click on, it'll come like this. It'll come a line will come under that, and it'll show you. It'll suggest you Megnath PC / Meg 6. Okay, so but if you enter any other name, for example, if I enter Meg 19 or Meg 25, I cannot enter any username. Now if I click on check names, it is telling user is not there. Okay, so Windows authentication you can give only for those users who are there in your system and who can actually log into your system, and then when they try to log into SQL server, it doesn't ask password again because they are already logged into the system. That is Windows authentication. Now if someone who is outside your company, or if someone from someone in the internet wants to access your server, so in that case you need to create SQL server authentication. You need to create SQL server authentication, and you need to tell him the password. So you need to create a password, and you need to tell the password for him. So in that time, what he will do is, when he tries to connect to SQL server using SQL server authentication, he will give the user ID and password which you are giving. But the server name you cannot give like Megnath PC. You need to give the IP address, because when you give Megnath PC, it cannot be identified in the internet. You might need to give him IP address. When you tell him the IP address, for example, IP address you can get like this. So cmd prompt, you can get ipconfig, and you can actually give him the IP address which you are seeing here, 192 dot whatever IP address you are seeing. So he will enter that IP address, he will enter user ID and password, he will try to connect using SQL server authentication. So when you are doing SQL server authentication, he need not be Windows user. Okay, so just let me make it clear now. Now I'm going to use Megnath account here. So Megnath is the sysadmin who is having all the privileges. So now, but this user Meg 18 is just he is only public user, so he cannot create logins now. For example, if he goes to logins, he is not even seeing all the users. He cannot create a login. When he tries to create login, this guy cannot create logins. For example, when I'm giving SQL server authentication, so now Meg 18 is trying to create. So now when I give here Meg 20, and I give the password, say for example I give the password which we have here, this password. So now Meg 18 is trying to create the user, so he cannot create the user. So let's see whether he can create or not. Let's go to user mappings and select db2 batch 4, and let's try to create. Okay, see now create failed login make 20 because user does not have permissions to perform this action. So this user make 18 is not having access to create logins, but whereas the other user, when you create an account, while installing SQL Server, you would have given you would have logged in with your name, so that person can create logins. So that is this person. Okay, so now he can actually create logins. If you want him, for example, if you want this guy make 18 able to create logins, what you need to do is you need to right click on this make 18, and yeah, these are all DBA job. We don't need to care for this thing. Okay, so you need to go to server roles. You need to select him. Security admin, sysadmin. When you give all these options for him, he can actually create users. Okay, we don't need to care. But for now, keep it in mind, there are two types of authentication: Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication. Windows authentication, you can add the logins of those users who are there in your system or in your organization. You cannot add names like that. Whatever username you want, you cannot give that. But whereas for SQL Server authentication, you can give the user ID of your choice, and you need to give the password, and users will be able to log in using user and password. Okay, so is it clear now for difference between Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication? Actually, I thought of not telling this in this course. This is a database testing course, but still some of you asked me to explain this one. So okay, so I am seeing response like little bit clear from some of you. Let's make this fully clear. So now as a last time, I'm okay. Anyway, we'll spend more time on understanding the concept for initial 3-4 days. Once we are clear with these basics, we can progress quickly. So don't feel like we are investing more time here. So okay, so now let's try to create a login here. Right click on this new login. Now I'm selecting Windows authentication. I'm giving here make 25 and click on search, and here I'm giving make 25 and click on check name. So why I'm not able to add make 24 for Windows authentication? Any answer? Why I'm not able to add make 25 for Windows authentication? Answer? Perfect. I am seeing the response from all of you because he is not user in my system. He's not a user in my system. So let's try to make this guy user in my system. So I'll show you how to make that. So let me create use.